Shruti Smriti Purananamalaya Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Pada Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Shri Ramachandra Swami Namaha. We are beginning our study in this series of 4 talks of Manīṣā-pañcakam. Panchakam, a set of 5 verses. Manisha, the highest understanding of the non-dual pure self. We are indeed happy to apply our minds to this lofty Vedanta composition attributed to none else than Adi Shankaracharya. We are indeed doubly happy to have these sessions at the sacred premises of Samsara near Anusonai, near Hosur. It's a very sacred place where Pujya Swami Virajeshwarananda Swamiji did years of tapas, stayed here and blessed many devotees, guided a number of students, and even today we feel the holy vibrations of the saint scholar. Founded for a moment it got disconnected. The story behind this Manīṣā-pañcakam coming into being is well known. One fine morning, in the early hours, I guess, Adi Shankaracharya took bath in the holy Ganges at Kashi, Varanasi, and was coming up the steps and was going towards Kashi Vishwanath temple. As though blocking his way, there appeared a Chandala, meaning someone who was very much low in the social hierarchy of caste, communities, and so on. And it is generally said he was also holding 4 dogs with ropes, or they were with him by his side. And going by certain social practices which were present those days, and to a little extent are present these days too, for every society has some customs, some manners, some ways which are regarded as the right ways. So, a bit influenced by those conditions, and definitely not caught in those conditionings. We cannot imagine Adi Shankaracharya's consciousness to be in any way bound by those social customs. As we know very well, he was the one who said to the Brahmins who protested when he came to do the Antya Samskara of his mother's body. He was the one who answered them, Nistrayi gunne pati vicharatam ko vidihi ko nishedaha. What do's and don'ts can affect people who are constantly abiding by Brahman, which is Nistrayi gunya, beyond the 3 gunas. He was certainly anchored in that Brahma, which was beyond 3 gunas. But in his operation, by and large, he did respect certain norms which were in place. For example, if he were to meet a king, he would certainly treat the king with certain respect. He would say, "Oh Emperor, oh King." If he were to meet some Vedic scholar who had studied the Vedas, who was, let us say, living a disciplined life, who was devoted to God, Adi Shankaracharya would pay certain respect to the lifestyle of the person. However, all the same, this morning, this Chandala coming in front of him was apparently a testing moment. Adi Shankara was Lord Shiva's incarnation. He had all the powers, all the supernatural siddhis, and if we don't want to use the word siddhis, miraculous powers, he certainly was on such an elevated consciousness level that, yes, in one sense, at any moment, he would know who is who. Trikala drishti, and a drishti that penetrates into any person was, of course, at his fingertips. So how do we understand Adi Shankara saying to that Chandala, "Give way, go away, don't block my path"? Many people have commented it in different ways. One possible way is, ultimately it was Shiva's own Leela. Lord Shiva, Lord Mahadeva can make any saint, any sage, or his own son Ganesha or Kartikeya, he can make them slightly step aside for a moment as a Leela. Some commentators have said Lord Shiva came as Chandala to test his chosen instrument. Swami Chinmayananji wrote like that. Adi Shankara was Lord Shiva's chosen instrument, and he wanted to test, has the chosen instrument in any way lost a little sharpness, a little shine, and therefore he came as Chandala that morning. So call it Leela, call it his desire to test Adi Shankara. In no way Adi Shankara was really at fault. Like in these days too, we find any great scientist would be devoted to his scientific work, and as regards social customs, they would by and large go by what most people would do. So if you and I also at times follow some social customs, I personally think that is not a big issue at all. In fact, what is a big issue is if in our heart there is a sense of high and low. In our heart, if there is a sense of contempt, ragadvesha. Adi Shankaracharya did not have any ragadvesha towards that Chandala. But the Chandala's appearance with 4 dogs in hands, etc., was not fitting into the whole setting. In fact, those who say, oh, no, why should Adi Shankara worry about how the man looks? Then they should also ask another question. Where did Adi Shankara have the need to take bath and go to bath? Don't go to Ganga and straight go to Vishwanath Mandir saying, you know, what shaucha, what ashaucha. Nistrayi gunne pati vicharatam, kim shaucham, kim ashaucham. That would not be proper. So just as he followed norms, Maryada, you are going to the most well-known Jyotirlinga, Vishwanatha in Kashi. So along with disciples, you take bath in Ganga, and there is certainly a certain importance in the context of norms. And here comes a person who is apparently not at all clean, and therefore what is called the behavior as per some Maryada. He said, Gacha, Gacha. That is the story, and rest of it is described in these shlokas themselves. That Chandala, that low caste man, retorts. He reacts, maybe with a mischievous smile on his face. He says to Sri Shankaracharya, you are asking me to give way. You are asking someone to move away. Who is that someone? Is that someone this body? Or is that someone the spirit, Chaitanya? That is how the very first shloka has this question. Let's make an entry into the verses. Please repeat after me. This is what the Chandala says. The first 2 verses are in the mouth of Chandala. The next 5 verses are by Adi Shankaracharya. Annamayad annamayam athava chaitanyameva chaitanyat Vijavaraduri kartum vanchasi Kim bruhi gaccha gaccheti Dvijavara. Adi Shankara was a sannyasi. However, Vijavara, the best among Brahmins, is also a highly respectful way of addressing. A sannyasi is said to be beyond the four varnas. However, again a matter of acceptable practices, Shankara is addressed by Chandala as Dvijavara. Otherwise, it could have been Yativara, it could have been Munivara, it could have been Guruvara, and such words. Oh, the best among the twice born, Kim vanchasi duri kartum. What exactly do you want to be removed, to be sent away? You want this Annamaya Sharira to be moved away from that Annamaya Sharira in which you are appearing. Annamayad Annamayam Duri Kartum Vanchasikim, or you too are Chaitanya, Satchit. I too am Satchit. So do you want this Satchit, especially Chit, Chaitanya, to be taken away, to be moved away from that Chit? Both ways there is a problem. If you say the first option is the matter, Annamayad Annamayam Duri Kartum Vanchami, says Adi Shankara, then what is the big difference? Like in modern science, they would say the body is made of hydrogen and chlorine and phosphorus and all those elements. Every body is made of those elements, basic elements. In olden days, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, the Taittiriya Upanishad calls them the five Atmas. Anyontara Atma, Pranamaya. Interestingly, the Upanishad doesn't use the word kosha. The kosha came later. A bit of a drishtanta was brought in, a sword placed in a sheath. So the pure self, as though is placed in the sheath of Anandamaya, Vijnanamaya, Manomaya, Pranamaya, Annamaya. Sheath, kosha, a sword in its sheath. In the proper Upanishad, which is the basis for that whole Adhyaropa. It's an Adhyaropa, it is a prakriya, it's a way of teaching. In reality, the Atma cannot be enveloped by anything. In reality, the Atma is neither outside nor inside. In reality, actually, neither is Atma covered by anything, nor does Atma cover anything. Because there is only one. When there is only one, what can cover what? However, in the Vedantas, namely Upanishads, a prakriya is used. Deliberate superimposition and subsequent negation. The teachers deliberately talk about the pure self not being visible at present. We don't know where the pure self is. All we see is this body. So shall we take this body to be the Atma? The question is raised, and the students are encouraged to examine that possibility. As you know, in Raghuvalli of the Taittiriya Upanishad, Raghu takes the Annamaya Atma to be everything, but he examines. That is called inquiry. Jnana Marga is marked by inquiry. Is this the truth, or is something else the truth? When you see the snake, which actually is the rope, you inquire, is this really a snake, or is it something else looking like a snake? So Annamaya Atma is explored, then you come Pranamaya Atma, Manomaya Atma. Neither Brahmanandavalli nor Bhraguvalli uses the expression kosha or the drishtanta. I have to check, probably in Shankara Bhashya, this Asihi is the soul, and kosha, the sheath, probably they are mentioned. So, Prakarana Granthas, Atmabodha, Viveka Chudamani, and so on, have extensively used Panchakosha. All this came because this Chandala, who was Parameshwara himself, used the expression Annamayad Annamayam Athava Chaitanyameva Chaitanyat. Since both the Annamaya Shariras are qualitatively one and the same, just external rupa. So Chandala just sidelines or dismisses other things like cleanliness and so on. If you go to a jeweler and give him 20 grams of gold, and if you say, sorry, it is a little soiled, the jeweler says, I don't care, I will clean it up. Let me first see whether it is real gold. So he tests it, and if it's a little soiled, it had fallen into some mud and it had gathered some dust around it, the jeweler doesn't mind. So, depending on context, we do attach importance to external factors or do not give importance to them. Chandala does not care. If Shankara had taken bath and this Chandala had not taken bath, Shankara is accompanied by disciples who also have taken bath, and probably right after wiping their body on the steps of the Ganga Ghat, maybe they had even put bhasma and chandana and what else, worn some fresh clothes, whatever. Chandala says, those things do not matter to me. That is also Annamaya. This is also Annamaya. Therefore, you are asking this Annamaya Atma to be taken away. Makes no sense. And if it is consciousness, you are in more trouble. You seem to be a learned person. You seem to be a Vedanta master. You must know very well that Chaitanya is Sarvavyapi. There is first of all no two Chaitanyas at all. There is no Chaitanya there and Chaitanya here. There is only one Chaitanya. Sarvavyapi, Ekameva Chaitanyam. Therefore, asking me that the Chaitanya here, which is not a right expression, should be moved away from the Chaitanya there. The Chaitanya here and Chaitanya there have no validity. Kim duri kartum vanchis. What do you want to send to a distance? Bruhi, please tell me. Gacha, gacha, you have loudly said, gacha, gacha. So this itself makes Adi Shankara realize that we are here for a different thing. In fact, there was no need for any more words. I would imagine even these words were not necessary. Even as Adi Shankara said, gacha, gacha, and that Chandala looked up, I would imagine that one look of Chandala would have made Adi Shankara realize, oh, this is no ordinary person. So these two verses are for our benefit. Little expansion. Adi Shankara would have instantly understood. Yet he stood there, going by this narration. He heard the words of Chandala, and then coming from the Chandala himself, there is this second verse which is filled with much more Vedantic teachings. In other words, it elaborates. This much more and much less, etc., is again in a manner of saying. Because it is said, all the Vedas are filled into Gayatri. Gayatri is filled into Om. So when you say Om, already everything is filled in it. But the question is, does everybody who says Om realize it? Therefore, not exactly it's a matter of feeling more, but it is a matter of letting common people also understand. Om may have everything in it, but most people just do not know. In the Chandogya Upanishad itself, there is the example which then gets elaborated in Prakarana Granthas. Which example? A son has run into poverty, and in the backyard of his house, he is moving, pacing the ground. Now what do I do? Our father has passed away, and there is no money. Some people had lent him some money, they are asking me to return. And this explains that so much is needed to run the house. He is pacing the ground very restlessly. That example is given in Chandogya Upanishad. While the truth is, right below his feet, in the backyard, there is a treasure. Gold and silver, pearls and diamonds, whatever. Maybe hard cash also, are all there. But he does not know. So Om is like that. Om is, as we go by the Shastra, Om iti idagam sarvam, says Mandukya Upanishad. Yad bhutam, yad bhavat, yad bhavishyat cha, sarvam omkara eva. So Om is everything. But like that son did not know that there is treasure below his feet, below the ground, we do not know. So we do not see the significance of Chandala's words. Therefore, Chandala himself gives more details. The second shloka is, in fact, in the full-fledged Chardula Vikridita meter, in which the next 5 verses that are given by Adi Shankara are composed. The Chandas or the Vritta. There are 2 words actually, but we loosely use the word Chandas for everything. Otherwise, Vritta is a superset, and under it there are many Chandas. But this Chandas may be something different from Shardula Vikridita or may not be. But we broadly call this Shardula Vikridita. Shardula means a lion, Simha. A lion walks fearlessly, and after walking a few steps, the lion stops and just looks to the left, looks to the right, not out of fear, but just to take note of what is around. So, Shardula Vikridita. Vikridita is play, but it implies the fearless, playful, dignified gait, style of walking of a Simha. So this Chandas is called Shardula Vikridi. Let's read this shloka. Chandala is saying to Adi Shankara, elaborating on his own previous Question. Kim Gangambuni Bimbitembaramanav Chandala Vati Payaha Pure Chantaramasti Kanchana Ghati Kumbhayor Vambare Pratyagvastuni Nistaranga Sahaja Anandavabodham Budhau Viproyam Shvapachoyam Ityapi Mahan Koyam Vibheda Brahmaha. Shardula Vikridita, to say one more thing about it, has 19 syllables in each quarter, and typically, or why always, it can be split as 12 and 7. Sometimes when you split, you may cut into a middle of a word, but in more graceful structures, 12 syllables and a new word starts there. Like in the first line, Kim Gangamuni Bimbite Ambaramanau is 12 syllables. Then Chandala Vati Payaha is 7 syllables. 12, 7, 19 into 4. That means 76 syllables. And the benefit of this, apart from its own charm, beauty, dignity, more weight, in a Shardula Vikridita Chandas, in a verse, we can fill more details. More of what you want to say can be put into it. In contrast, if you have Anushtup, which is the most common chandas in all scriptures and perhaps elsewhere also, it's only 8, 8, 8, and 8. Yada yada hi dharmasya, 8. Glanir bhavati bharata, 8. Abhyutthana madharmasya, 8. Tadatmanam srijamyaham, 8. So 32. 76 syllables in Shardula Vikridita, only 32, less than half in Anushtup. Therefore, for various reasons, poets, authors employ different meters. Whole Saundarya Lahari and lot of verses in Shivananda Lahari and Shiva Mahimna Stotra are all in Shikarini. 17. If you count the syllables, it is 1/7 quarter. So it's just 2 less than Shardula Vikridita, but still it looks a little shorter. Mahimna param te parama vidusho yadya sadrishi stutir brahmadinam apitadavasanna svaivira, and so on. Saundara Lahari also, Shiva Shaktya Yukto Yadi Bhavati Shakta Prabhavitum, 17. Then Shivananda Lahari. Most of the shlokas, not all, most of the shlokas are Namo Nedishtaya Priyadavadavishtaya Chanama. Oh, that is Shiva Mahimna Stotra. In Shivananda Lahari we have the first shloka itself, I think. Many Shikarini shlokas are there. Let's not go into them. So this is Shardula Vikridita. 12 plus 7. Now let's get into the meanings. In the meanings, it is quite pretty. The words chosen also. The Chandala is obviously Lord Shiva himself. But from our angle of view, we can dare say, is in an inspired state of mind, so to say. Though he is beyond mind, he is indescribable. How can we describe Shiva? But we do say when he dances Tandava Nritya also, we say it's in Unmatta Sthiti. So he is beyond any sthiti, but outwardly, from our eyes. Gangambuni, Ganga, Mother Ganga, Ambu is water. In the water of holy Ganges, Bimbite Ambara Manau. Ambara is sky, Mani is jewel. The jewel in the sky is a reference to Surya. So Surya, the sun, is reflected in the sacred water of Ganga. That is case one. Second case is Chandala Vati is like modern times we have slum areas. Slum areas are dirty, and if there is some water, typically some stagnant water. Payapura. We have given a hyphen because the word doesn't end there. Payapura is a compound, samasa, where payaha, water, has collected and it's not clean. It is in the area where very poor, socially low level, downtrodden people live. We are not going to sociology here. Even in very developed countries, Europe and America also, there are some places which are terrible. Because ultimately it is human mind. Some people, even if they do have the means, they don't keep their place clean. Right? So, Chandala Vati Payapura. Over there is a pool of water. Pura in Sanskrit is a pool of water. Bimbite Ambaramanau goes with that also. So Surya is Bimbita, Pratibimbita, Pratifalita, is reflected there. And Chandala asks the question, Antaram asti kim? Gangambuni bimbite ambaramanau, Chandala vati payapure bimbite ambaramanau cha, Antaram asti kim? And as though one example is not enough, the Chandala goes further to say, Kanchana ghati, on one hand, a pot made of gold pot. Mrit kumbha. Kumbha again is pot, a pot made of clay. In British English, which we were using till recently, now slowly we are moving into American English. Pot made of mud. Or there is another word, earthen pot. Sorry if the class is going more to language than to darshana. Vedanta is a darshana. But in the Vedanta darshana, bhasha plays a vital role. But we should balance it. If we go too much into bhasha, too much into chandas, too much into alankara, then the main purpose is rather defeated. So, Mrit Kumbha, that is an earthen pot. And now he is not talking of sun getting reflected. Chandala speaks of Ambara. Ambara is space, Akasha. Akasha is, in a manner of saying, covered by gold pot, or Akasha is covered by earthen pot. Does it make any difference as regards space? Akashaha ekaha eva. Astu Akashaha. Panchana Gatyam astuva mritkumbe. The space in this hall and the space in a poor man's hut somewhere. The space is the same. So Chandala is asking. So two illustrations he gives. And we are going about this in a rather simple way. There are commentaries, and you can imagine scholars who have studied Nyaya and Sankhya, Yoga, and what is that, Vaisheshika, who have studied even Advaita Vedanta itself. There are many schools of thought. From Vivarana school, and what is that other one? One school uses more of the pot example, space as though covered by a pot, avachedavada, and other one refers to pratibimbavada. So they go into so many niceties, so many finer dimensions, and they handle the issue how you and I are ananta, we are infinite. How did we come to experience finitude, alpatvam? Anantasya alpatvam kutah? How does the infinite? And that is how different schools. Padmapada, direct disciple of Adi Shankara, apparently set in motion one school of thought. I believe he wrote a whole commentary on Adi Shankara's Ariraka Bhashya, but much of it was lost. And then a small part that I think is called Panchapadika. And then some years later, maybe a couple of centuries later, I don't know how many years later, a mighty scholar called Vachaspati Mishra, he wrote a commentary not on the Upanishads, not on Brahma Sutras, but on Shankara's commentary on Brahma Sutra. Shankara's Brahma Sutra Bhashya was explained in much more detail by several people. I have not studied any of them. We read Shankara Bhashya. That itself is a big project. One life is not enough. Straight Shankara Bhashya itself. But on Shankara Bhashya, Padmapada, Sarvajnatma Muni, Samprakashatma Muni, etc. Then this Vachaspati Mishra, he was lost in writing his commentary that he did not even know who was serving food to him. Food was placed, he would eat, maybe 5 minutes rest and then again. Some years later, he one day looked up and saw the lady who was serving him. And he asked, "Who are you?" She said, "I am your wife, I am Bhamati." And he felt, oh my God, she has been taking care of me. And I was so lost in this writing work. And he named his commentary on Shankara's commentary on Brahma Sutra, Bhamati. So Bhamati is a tika or a vyakhyana on Bhashya of Sri Shankara. So I have not studied those. Once or twice somewhere we glanced at some portions. But what the Chandala has said here, second shloka, represents a very, very prominent key example that those two prasthanas, one led by Panchapadika and so on, and another led by this Bhamati of Vachaspati Mishra. Though they have talked about many things, but in certain key areas, one of them uses the analogy or illustration of reflection, pratibimba vada. It's an analogy, it's only a drishtanta. It is not the truth. And any drishtanta would fall short of the truth. So, one school uses Pratibimbavada, Ambuni, Bimbita. Another uses the Avachedavada. That is, Kumbhe in a pot, Akasha, Avachannaha, Avachinnaha, Avacheda, so Chiddhatu, Avachinnaha. So, that is, what is unlimited is made to look limited. That is, even though this hall is in place, all of us know space did not get cut into parts. Tomorrow, suppose you are expanding this, you remove these walls. You will not find Akasha in pieces because you had made this hall. Hall or no hall, walls or no walls, makes no difference to Akasha. But in a manner of saying, Akasha is limited, Avachinna. So, this is not an ordinary shloka, therefore. Chandala picks from the two major schools of Advaita Vedanta and puts the question to Adi Shankara. Of course, this was a time when neither of the school had emerged. Adi Shankara's time. Those schools came up later. And of late, some more schools have come. Of late, some great scholars have questioned certain interpretation in both these two schools. So be it. The second part of this shloka directly comes to the issue, or what we may call darshtantika. Drishtanta is the illustration. Darshtantika is the theme. The theme and some illustration for it. So a brave, heroic person comes towards us and we say, look, the lion is coming. Lion is the illustration. And actually it is a brave man. Right? In Sanskrit literature, lotus is often the illustration, drishtanta, for anything that is beautiful. Lotus-like eyes, Padmaksha. Lotus-like face, Padmamukha. Or lotus-like hands. Lotus-like feet also, Padambuja. And the simple little verse in Upajati meter, slightly longer than Pushtup, is the first shloka of Bala Mukundashtak. Kara Aravindena, Pada Aravindam, Mukha Aravinde, Viniveshayantam. Kara Aravindena, Pada Aravindam, Mukha Aravinde, Viniveshayantam. Vatasya Patrasya Pute Shayanam, Balam Mukundam Manasa Smarami. I salute, I remember in my mind Balamukunda, child Krishna, Vatapatra Madhye, is lying on a banyan leaf. I guess he takes with his lotus-like hands, he holds his lotus-like foot and puts into his lotus-like mouth. All are Aravinda only. We will not go into much details, but there is one story about Kalidasa. Bhoja Raja had asked a question. Can there be two lotuses, or can there be a lotus in a lotus? Kamale Kamalam. You know. So in high school Sanskrit, sometimes such lessons are given. Kamale Kamalam Shruyate Natu Drishyate. They talk about lotus in lotus. Shruyate, we hear about it. But where do we get to see? Do we see anywhere lotus in a lotus? Maybe two lotuses side by side, but not lotus in a lotus. And to make the long story short, Kalidasa was hiding somewhere. And then when it went to him, wherever he was hiding, he said it's very simple. And a lady asked him, tell me, what is it? How is it? So he says to that lady, young lady, I can see lotus in lotus right in you. She said, in me? I don't have any lotus on me today. He said, your face is like lotus. Your eyes are like lotuses. So, Kamale Kamalotpattihi, Kamale Kamalotpattihi, Shruyate Natu Drishyate, first part of the shloka. That is understood. And Kalidasa says, Vale tava mukam bhoje, mukha ambhoje. In the lotus face of yours, Drishtam Indivara Dvayam. Indivara is one more synonym for Kamal. Drishtam Indivara Dvayam. Your two eyes, which are so beautiful like lotuses, are seen Drishtam in your Mukha Amboje. And then that lady runs to the king and says, I got the answer, give me, what prize was announced. And the Raja says, arrest her first. She knows where Kalidasa is hiding. We want Kalidasa and put her in jail for one day, whatever punishment. So, analogies. First half of the shloka is drishtantas. Second half of the shloka says, pratyag vastuni. In lay language, we use the word vastu for things. Vastu is some object lying somewhere. But in darshana, in language of philosophies, vastu means truth. Vastu means reality. Pratyag vastuni. In the truth, that is pratyag, inside. For the Atma is the inmost truth, in a manner of saying. On a higher note, it is everywhere. But when you and I are perceiving this world, something attracts us, ice cream, oh, shall I have it? Something attracts us, something repels us. And then when we read Vedanta, if we think, where is this Atma? Is it in ice cream? Is it on a hill? Is it in a temple? Against that backdrop, we are told it's not anywhere outside. Neither Atma is anywhere outside, nor is happiness anywhere outside. Like it's written in bold letters at the entrance on a board. Happiness is not anywhere outside. Happiness is inside you. Therefore, when you are at the Hamsa ashram, at least when you are here, try to advise your own mind. The mind goes on thinking, buy this, get that, go there. Nobody says don't go, nobody says don't buy, but we are told, don't imagine that lasting happiness is in those things. You may buy land, you may build a house. Young man comes and asks you, uncle, may I marry? Tell him, please marry. My blessings are with you. Vedanta is not against marriage. Vedanta is not against children. But if anybody imagines, once I marry that girl, I will be happy till sun and moon are in the sky. What is Chandra Surya? That is false. Therefore, pratyag vastu, against the backdrop of our believing that there are things outside, things inside, we would rather say Atma is inside. Pratyag Vastuni Saptami, in the Pratyag Vastu, which is a beautiful expression indeed. For that matter, this whole Manīṣā-pañcakam is quite excellent in poetic quality. We will see in the further verses also. Whether it is drishtantas or some expressions or the force of argument, it's a great work. So right here in Chandala's question, Nistaranga Sahaja Ananda Avabodha Ambudau. When we talk about it in English, we have to translate it taking the last word and going backwards. In any Indian language, the syntax will be same. We go Sanskrit and Kannada, etc. They go in a similar manner. To explain it, we will start with Nistaranga, then Sahajananda, and so on. But in English, in the ocean, Ambudhi. Ambu is water, and Dhi means where huge amount of water is placed. Dha, dadhati is to keep. If I take a gold coin and place it before you, aham suvarna nishkam dadhami. Dadhami, so dha. So imagine huge amounts, millions and millions and millions gallons or liters, are all put in there. So Ambu Dhi, a huge collection of water, is an ocean. What ocean are we talking about? We're going backwards in the Sanskrit compound. Ananda Avabodha Ambudhav. Ananda is bliss, Avabodha is knowledge. So out of such Chit Ananda, this expression takes Chit and Ananda. Chit is Avabodha and Ananda is Ananda. Ananda Avabodha Ambudhav, and it has no wave, Nistaranga, and it is Sahaja. See the tragedy of our life in spiritual ignorance. What is infinite, we do not think about. What is natural, we leave behind. And we go for things of the world which are neither infinite nor natural. Things of the world are very unnatural. And nowadays, more and more unnatural things are coming our way. In olden days, at least, people lived much in contact with nature. Milk, unadulterated. Vegetables, pure, organic. But now, where do you get anything pure? Even water, we do not know. We drink water somewhere. So this, I'm talking of Sahaja. Now everything is Kratrima. Kratrima is artificial. So Sahaja, Ananda, Avabodha, Ambudau, and no waves at all. A regular ocean has waves, but this inner bliss has no variation. It doesn't become more or less. Don't say then the example of ocean is not right. An ocean always has waves. There is no ocean anywhere without waves. No. In literature, you may take an example and then you may give it a twist. The best example is in 15th chapter of Gita or Kathopanishad. You have an Ashwatha Vriksha, but it is said it's upside down. Urdhva Mulaha Avakshakaha, Kathopanishad. Urdhva Moolam Adashakam Ashwattham Prahuravyayam, Krishna in the Gita. I myself had a problem long back. And in the early years, I said, if roots are above, then he must be talking about a banyan tree. Because banyan tree has those, they are called adventitious roots or something. It may not be Ashwattham. Then one day it became clear. Don't try to connect the Drishtanta so much with the Darshtantika. The word Ashwatha is used both by Kathopanishad and Gita to signify one thing sacred. Ashwatha is a sacred tree. God is sacred. God's creation also is sacred. Another is the word Ashwatha has a different meaning. One double meaning. One is the tree. Another is Shvaha means tomorrow. Tha means Tishtati, Sa Tishtati. Shvaha na Tishtati. Shvaha na Stasyati. Iti Ashwatha. That means that which doesn't remain tomorrow. You have something in your hand and one day passes, you find it has changed. Pratikshanam Pradvam Samanaha. Adi Shankara writes a wonderful commentary on that. Kathopanishad mantra, long one. The tree is described. Every moment it is changing. Kadali Garbhavat Nissara. A banana tree, you go on opening, inside there is nothing final. So, number of expressions. Then he describes the leaves, he describes the branches, he describes the birds sitting upon that tree, making a lot of sound, lot of birds. And then he says, that is our samsara. Our worldly life. Samsara means worldly life. So, over there, a regular people tree, Ashwatha Vriksha, has branches above and roots below. Whereas this Samsara Ashwatha Vriksha is different. What is that extra, which is not case with regular Ashwatha? This one is upside down. So Drishtantas permit going one step further. So we can do it with anything else also. Imagine a school girl upside down, if you say. What prevents anybody from imagining her upside down? Or imagine a school itself. A school building, imagine it upside down. You may say, there is no school building anywhere which is upside down. He said, yes, I know. But for my conveying something, I want you to imagine a school which is upside down. A regular school is not upside down. See it that way. So here too, regular Ambudi is never Nistaranga. Ambudi means there is Taranga always. Swami Chinmayananda used to say, somebody went to the ocean, maybe on some Parvakala, some auspicious time, to take bath. And he was waiting. Some people asked him, why are you waiting? Take bath. I am waiting for the waves to stop. When will the waves stop? Waves will not stop. But here, Lord Shiva, in the disguise of Chandala, says, in you there is the Shuddha Atma Tattva, which is like the ocean of wisdom, ocean of bliss, which has no waves. And if you are abiding by that, it seems you are not. Therefore, you ask me, Gacha, Gacha. But if you are abiding, if you are paying attention to that waveless, blissful self, Pratyak Vastu, Pratyak Tattva, Pratyak Satya, how can there be a Vibheda Brahma? This Brahma, high and low, Brahmin and Chandala, how can this difference be? Vipraha ayam, the differentiation. This is a Vipra. Not only born as a Brahmin, but having studied Vedas, one becomes Vipra. Such definitions are found in certain scriptures. Even Viveka Chudamani talks about Vipratva. Yantunam narajanma durlabhamata pumstvam tato viprata. It goes on. And Atmanatma Vivechanam, then Swanubhava, Su Anubhava. And finally, what does it say? Last line says, uh, to put it in English, this realization is possible only through punya gained in millions of lives. Muktirno chatajanma koti sukritai punyer vina nabhyate. Mukti, to be born as a human being itself is a great privilege. That's how, after the Dhyana Shloka, as all of you have studied, I'm sure, the Viveka Chudamani says, Narajanmam eva durlabham. Tatrapi pumstvam, tatrapi something else, then again something, then again something. And then finally, mukti. Mukti hi na labhyate shatakoti janma sukritair vina. This side. To make us realize what a precious human life we have. And if we have already been introduced, exposed by grace of great masters like Swami Rajeshwaranand, have been guided. Look, don't take things for granted. But when I think of Swamiji, though he was an embodiment of knowledge, jnana, what strikes me more in Hamsa Ashrama is the due importance given to Anushtana. In a lot of ashrams in this Kali Yuga, it's all filling the head with more and more shloka, mantra, more and more books. And about rules, it is a little taken lightly, unfortunately. Therefore, in a whole lot of Vedanta ashrams, great studies may be taking place. But 99 out of 100, even after they study big works and even give lectures, etc., somehow get stuck somewhere, they get distracted, they get attached somewhere, they get bored somewhere, they have access to all great works because that somehow, for whatever, maybe it is its own reason, sometimes the so-called missionary work. The message should go to thousands of people. It's okay if you don't do Sandhya Vandana, go and take a class. Rama Rama. So, concession is made on japa, tapa, shaucha, on various ethical, moral rules also. Money, this, that. Whereas here, that's very striking. And I'm full of admiration. I'm thinking a lot. Puja Swamiji is new in this Kali Yuga. Vedanta people learn. But it's like you have jewels in a box, but you have lost the key. What's the use? So people with Pustaka Jnana, but who do not have self-control, is not only control of senses, but developing greater sensitivity, greater emotional intelligence. Therefore, having gone into it, I may as well say, in the Ashtavakra Gita, in the very first chapter, there's a powerful shloka. Later on, Ashtavakra goes into so many things. It's all wonderful only. But in the very first chapter in Ashtavakra Gita, he tells Janaka, let me read the shloka. I think I can remember also. There it is. Mukti michchasi chet tata. There is a shloka. We had a short discussion on it. Thank you. Mukti michchasi chet tata vishayan vishavatyaja Shama Arjava Daya Tosha Satyam Piyusha Vadbhaja. So I'm quoting this because some people, when it comes to Anushtana and so-called sadhana-oriented life, they miss one point. That is, they think that it is all about upavasa, mauna, simplicity, having just two pairs of clothes. That's okay, that's all very good. So they see the self-control part quite clearly, which is good, fully the respect. But as this shows, that's how it came to my mind, it is also connected to Shama, being kind to others. Not that you allow anything to be done, but even when somebody makes a mistake, doing what is appropriate, not to finish him off or not to go after him with some kind of revenge and so on. Punish him so that he doesn't do again. Punishment is okay, but Shama is that quality where you do not cause undue damage to him. So, Daya, Tosha, Satyam. So, Daya also is what modern times they call it emotional intelligence. Daya, compassion. So, forgiveness, compassion, straightforwardness, contentment, Tosha, Trupti, and Satyam, etc. So, it's not there are both sides. One is our own anusthana, and other is in interpersonal relation. He commented other day beautifully that just as kama, desire, causes agitation and can obscure the vision of dharma. What is right, what is wrong may not be clear if your bosom is filled with some desire for pleasure, for possession, etc. That person commented, many people do not realize that Krodha also does the same. A lot of people, especially in the spiritual field, they permit Krodha, anger, and not only anger about some lack of discipline somewhere, but the worst kind is, which is so common, they get very angry if they hear that somebody talked ill of them. If somebody has talked negatively about you, and you come to know, like you are doing some sadhana, and somebody says to somebody, "What sadhana?" And it's all show. He is not doing any sadhana. He is number one escapist, Palayanavadi. Suppose somebody says, and you come to know, and you get angry, and you harbor, you keep that anger in you for a long time. You keep hoping that somebody will teach him a real lesson. You keep hoping that something will happen to him. So this person commented, and it was very thought-provoking. Okay, keep that anger and do not forgive, and keep hoping that somebody will teach him a lesson, etc., teach her a lesson. But the result will be, in lot of matters, dharma, adharma, viveka in you will become unclear, will get muddied, and that will make us pay a heavy price. Lot of times we make a wrong judgment. We do not help somebody where he or she needs help, and we go out of our way to help somebody else who is an amakaram, who sometimes is lying to you. Once I helped one village woman who said, I have no money to send my child to school. One small 300, 400, or a little more maybe, 2000 also. And later I came to know that she didn't spend it to send the boy to the school. Next day they bought a nice new bicycle in their house. So in the village, somebody said, you give some money, no, to her. See, she has not used it for education. Now also the child is at home only, doesn't go to school. But there is some new cycle we see, and that child is going all over. So it is a lie. So judgment of relationships, what to be done, what is not to be done. Even things like, let me say that, as a last example, uh, how much to speak, where to stop. Because if we speak more than what is needed, something will go wrong. If not anything, people will lose respect for us. Some places, if we talk more, ಬೇಕಾದ್ದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಹೆಚ್ಚು, then ಮತ್ತೇನಲ್ಲ, ಒಳಗೊಳಗೆ ಇನ್ಸೈಡ್ ದೆಮ್ ದೇ ಮೊದಲಿದ್ದಷ್ಟು ಗೌರವ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಬಟ್ ಬೇಕಾದ್ದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಗೌರವ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗಿದೆ. Then if we speak less than what is needed, then we are not doing our duty. Somebody is about to go touch a live wire. I'm seeing he's going to touch it, he will get shock. I have decided to talk less. ಅವನಿಗೆ ಶಾಕ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಈಗ. ಅವಾಗ ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲಪ್ಪ, ನಾನು ನಮ್ಮ ಮೊನ್ನೆ ಯಾರೋ ಬೈದ್ರು ನನಗೆ, ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀಯ ಅಂತ. ನನಗೆ ಮಾತೇ ಆಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಕಣ್ಣೆದ್ರಿಗೆ that fellow will hold the electric wire and get shock and fall down. Then you ask me, why did you not tell him? ಈ ದಿನಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ವಾಕ್ ಸಂಯಮ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಹಾಳಾದ್ದು ನಿನ್ನ ವಾಕ್ ಸಂಯಮ. So we have to speak our duty sometimes. We are elders. We have to sometimes advise youngsters. In the name of someone, I am shy and who am I to advise you? You are elder, you are 20 years older to that girl or that boy. Therefore, so that is dharma viveka. Adike, for that, not only not to entertain kama, but not to entertain krodha, and then other things also. Any negativity, if you entertain, you say, anybody in my place would feel that. In some situation, your viveka will be clouded. You will not do what right thing to do. Then you pay for it. Viproyam shvapachoyam. This is a Brahmin, that is a Chandala. Shvapachaha literally means those who cook dogs, those who kill and cook. Shva, dog, pachana, paka. Oyam vipedam Brahma. So when the Chandala thus asks questions in these two verses, as I said, Shankara, much before these words are, he understands. And lastly, Adi Shankara understands, and next 5 verses are Adi Shankara's answer to the Chandala's questions. What is very notable, and you and I can test our wisdom in the light of this, whether it is the highest Brahmajnana or even some wisdom on some various lower levels, if we are wise, one sign of that would be flexibility. Instantly, we will be able to, accept a true suggestion. As I believe there is a saying in Bhagavatam, Baladapi Shukadapi. Even a little child, tells us that you said something wrongly. So even if a child says, and I find, yeah, he is right. Like other day at the other place, I was conducting a class and I slightly misquoted the shloka. Upama Kalidasasya Bharaver Artha Gauravam Dandinaha Padalalityam and Mage Santi Trayoguna. But in one class towards the end, by mistake, I said Bhase Santi Trayoguna. Nobody told me, no Bala came, no Shuka came. But after half an hour in my room, I said, oh my God, right? It's Basa, it should be Maga. So next class, I myself said, Suppose a bala were to say it, a child says, one is the correction error, but another is, if I am truly wise, if I am truly vidyavan, then if I see it is wrong, I would quickly change. With no anger with the child, with no, who are you to tell me? Madhya bhai hakbada. So like that, we say, don't. Something in Hindi they say, choti muh badi baat. Mr. Sen bhai ide asdar matadte ನನಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ತೀಯ ನೀನು. So without getting into those things, rather if you are able to thank that child, oh, what class? You are in 7th standard. You pointed out there, thank you. Correct, you are right. Like that if we go. In all subjects, whether it need not be Adhyatma Vidya, good teachers who are also noble human beings will be able to. So there are so many dimensions of this being a good human being, which is the way to the final enlightenment. And you and I discover that we are good here, but not good enough somewhere else. So we need to correct ourselves. So Shankara, without any murmur, immediately changes his stance, and the next sloka says, I take you as my guru. You who is able to see the distinction between Atma and Anatma, you who are able to see that one truth pervading all creation, Brahmadi Pipili Kanta Tanushu, there is an expression. That's where the poetic charm also comes. You are able to see the samvit consciousness principle, which is in Chaturmukha Brahma as well as a crawling ant. Anyone who has that kind of vision is my guru. Let him be Vipra, let him be Chandala. That's how he answers. We shall see them. Afternoon class. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Namaha. Hari Om.